Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In our last episode with this backhoe, I had just removed the engine and then partially disassembled it in anticipation of doing a complete engine rebuild. Unfortunately, once I removed the head, I realized that the engine block was cracked in numerous places. Now, it was repairable, it would have required a lot of time and money, and unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of either to spend on this project. So I took a step back and reevaluated the whole project. In doing so, I decided that it would be better to spend the time that I was going to spend on that engine rebuild and instead put that towards removing every single component that was on that tractor and then selling those parts individually to try to recoup my losses. So let's jump right into finishing that engine disassembly so that I could remove the last few valuable parts to resell. Alright guys, first up is removing the adapter plate for the engine to the transmission. Usually this part is very boring, but there's a few different options for this year. You could have had the Continental gas engine or the Perkins Diesel like I have, and then for the transmission it could be a full manual or an instant reverse. So a few different adapter plates available. I'll package that up and hopefully that'll sell for a few bucks. Next up is removing the crank. Alright guys, I want to show you what ended up going catastrophically wrong on this engine. This is the number 1 piston, and as you can see there is quite a bit of damage to it. This side looks okay, this side not so much. The piston rings were still attached when I pulled it out of the motor, but they quickly fell off because the piston rings were in pieces. This is the number 2. Number 2 and 3 were fine. This is exactly what you would want it to look like after, well, what is 6,700 hours on that. This is the number 4. This one was in the worst shape. You see the scoring right there, and then huge chunks of it missing. This is what is left of some of the piston rings. They're just in pieces. Such a shame, because this is probably 2 cents worth of steel, and the entire engine failed because of it. Now, the reason that these piston rings failed is almost certainly because somebody used starting fluid to get this thing going. It probably sat for a while. They were using the starter fluid to get it going. It ended up blowing up the piston rings on the number 1 and 4 cylinders. And here we are. So if they would have not used starting fluid, and if they would have made sure to keep antifreeze in the coolant, we wouldn't be here right now. They'd have a $13,000, $14,000 backhoe that worked perfectly instead of what I ended up buying for $3,000, which ended up putting me in this situation. Alright guys, before I can get this transmission all cleaned up and ready for sale, there is one repair I have to make. This lever right here operates our rear diff lock. This pin goes in and locks to a large gear to lock the axles together, and as you can see, the lever on it is currently broken. It still works, but I would like to get this welded up right here. Because this is cast iron, it's going to be a little bit difficult. It does have to be preheated and very, very clean. So I'm going to hammer out the pin that's on the bottom, pop this whole bracket out. We'll get that cleaned cleaned up with a wire wheel, and then we will get it welded up. Guys, if you are going to be doing a repair like this, do not do what I did and weld right next to your MAP gas torch. $15.80. All right, things are going pretty good with the transmission. It's just about ready for paint. I was able to track down both of these shift boots on Amazon for 12 bucks, so that will help make it look a little sharper when it's all done. Of course, everything came out great with our little diff lock weld. Now, the reason that I'm painting this, really, there's two reasons. First, I already bought the paint. I was planning on doing a paint job on the entire tractor when I was disassembling it. The second reason is it should sell for an awful lot more money if I have this thing on a pallet, ready for freight. That's part of the reason why I weighed it as well, so we know the weight, we'll know the dimensions. It will all be strapped down, looking sharp with a fresh coat of paint on it. We've already gone through it absolutely completely and made sure that everything is in good working order. We tested the diff lock, we tested each of the individual rear brakes, we tested the instant reversing valve, which is actually pretty cool. This little valve in here, let me push, this is one direction, that's going to be forward, and then right here, that's going to be reverse. So you see it just changes the direction of the fluid in there. I will be installing the torque converter back on there, and then I'll make some little brackets here so that I can attach the torque converter to the bell housing. Again, that will be for shipment. Out here, I'm in the process of trying to get the tires removed from these wheels. You see I've got some weight from my forklift to try to break the bead. There's no air in them right now, but they are still being very stubborn. The reason that I'm separating them, if you see right here, we've got some rust. So basically this thing is being held together by the inner tube, and so nobody's going to want to buy this. So I'll get these separated. I don't know how I'll get rid of the tires yet. I might use those on some project around the homestead, and then I will scrap the steel. All of the steel that I had out here, it is out there in a big pile. I took the top of the backhoe, flipped it upside down, and then just basically dumped everything in there, and then used the forklift to move it out of the way. I've got our backhoe attachment on that pallet ready to go, get listed up on probably Facebook Marketplace. And then after that, I've got a couple of the heat exchangers here. This one here, I'm going to be removing all of the fittings to save the fittings for it, but I'll scrap the heat exchanger. It is steel. It's not worth anything. This one I'm going to keep. It's a really good size. And then again, I'll take those fittings off of there. Those fittings come in super handy. I keep them in the cabinets over there. And then over here, I've got a few things that I'm in the process of trying to get cleaned up. This steering gearbox here, I will remove one of the hoses, and then I'll bend the other one and connect it there so that it stays nice and dry during shipment. And then again, I'll have to find some plugs for this before I can get these parts all listed up. So let's get back to work. All right, so we've got our transmission ready to be palletized here. We have the cylinder head ready to go to the machine shop. I will be sending out the rocker arms with the cylinder head. We've got a few of our hydraulic components here. We've got our main valve set up. We've got the steering valves, and then we've got the little steering gearbox here. We've got our injector pump, the manual, a few items that I'm going to try to return. I think I'm still within the 30-day window on this front, I don't know what that's called, front hub assembly that uses the left-handed thread shaft, which is in this box here to go to the hydraulic pump. I've already sent back the hydraulic pump. I ended up having to eat about $70 in shipping on that one, which really sucks. We've got our head gasket along with a bearing set. Down here we have the complete engine rebuild kit. That's about $450 and it's unused, so I should be able to get some money out of that. We've got our water outlet here. We've got the crankshaft, the camshaft, the timing covers, the flex plate, the flywheel. Here is the adapter, which mates the Perkins AD4 203 to the Massey Ferguson instant reverse transmission. We've got the common rail for the injectors, and then the timing gear set. So what I will do is basically take all of these items, box them up in some of these extra Amazon boxes that I've been saving up, and then I will get them listed on eBay. Now, out here in the front yard, I've got all of the scrap steel. Now, what was kind of cool, I had a guy come out yesterday to pick up the front bucket. I'll show that to you in a second. But I told him, hey, go through this pile. This is all just getting scrapped. If there's anything that you can use, just take it. And so he took a bunch of the stuff. He took the idler pulley for the front, the alternator, stuff like that. Over here, we've got the oil pan and then the engine block. I wish I could sell this oil pan because I'm sure somebody has a cracked one somewhere, but it is cast iron and just incredibly heavy, so the shipping will make that cost prohibitive. And then over here, let me show you what I got. So we still have the bucket. This is currently listed on Facebook, so hopefully somebody will buy that soon. Yesterday, somebody came out and bought the front bucket. They had theirs stolen. They did not need the arm here. Almost certainly nobody will need this arm. They almost never fail because it's just a giant piece of steel. I've got 4 good cylinders on here, so I will probably remove those cylinders and then see if I can sell those individually because they're relatively common. And then I've got this here waiting to be sold with the backhoe in case somebody needs the attachments down there. And then I've got this front assembly. Again, this is another piece that's super frustrating because I'm sure somebody really needs this thing, but it is just way too heavy to transport. So I will probably remove the hydraulic steering components and then scrap the steel. Huge shame, but it is what it is. All right, guys, so the plan is when I hop into the office to edit this video, I will also make a spreadsheet to figure out exactly how much money I've got into this project. And then that way, as items start to sell, I can figure out exactly how much money we're making back and then maybe turning a small profit. All right, guys, I am back in the office here and I have a little spreadsheet ready to go. So starting off with $3,400 for the backhoe, that was $3,000 for the tractor, and then $400 for the extra bucket. There was about $80 in fuel costs to get to Idaho and back, and then a few items that I bought before, obviously I realized the block was bad. $714 for the hydraulic pump, $52 for a water pump, $207 for an intermediate shaft, $88 for a shaft adapter, and then $115 for a tie rod. So the total cost that I had into the entire project, $4,658.25. Now, there were a few items here that I was able to return, like the hydraulic pump for $714 and then the intermediate shaft. Luckily, it was the 2 most expensive items. That total that I got back was $922.29. Unfortunately, I had to pay shipping costs for those items back, so I lost $83 on that. And then the one item that I was able to sell so far, that front bucket, for $700. So the total that I need to get back from everything that you saw that I have left, $3,118.96. Now, I do have about 80 hours into this project, and I'll tell you right now, I am almost certainly not going to even make minimum wage if I turn a profit. But it's interesting to see how many hours I've got into it so that once everything is sold, I can then divide that by 80 and realize how not worth it this whole project was. But I'm excited to do this because I got a ton of comments in the last episode from people who are either currently in a similar situation or have recently been in a similar situation. It seems like most people have said that they ended up losing quite a bit of money in this project. I think I'll be all right because everything seems to be pretty valuable on its own. It's a pretty common tractor and a lot of the parts are in demand, but we're just going to have to see. So the next episode will be when most, if not all, of the parts parts are sold. I think some of them will probably hang on eBay for a little while. I don't even know how I'm going to sell that transmission yet, so that one could end up taking the longest, or it could be the first thing sold. But once I'm back in the black, which I'm pretty sure I will be, I'll do another episode and just kind of reevaluate, show you guys where I'm at, and hopefully show you guys how to dig out of a similar situation that you might find yourselves in. So until next time, take care.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.